I used to think trust was the invisible glue holding a marriage together. After 10 years with Daniel, I believed we had a solid bond, shared dreams, joint finances, and enough inside jokes to fill a book. But one chilly November evening, a single email shattered that illusion like a wine glass hitting tile. It began with something ordinary. Daniel left his laptop open on the kitchen island. He was in the shower, humming that old Springsteen tune he loved, and the steam drifted down the hallway. I wasn't snooping. At least, that's what I told myself as I wiped my flour-dusted hands and glanced at the glowing screen. The subject line read, "Monthly statement, private account." I frowned. We had only 2 accounts, both joint. I clicked. Numbers rolled across the screen. A balance of $74,863.52 stared back at me like a dare. The account had been opened 4 years earlier. During the same summer, Daniel had convinced me to scale back my hours at the marketing firm to focus on the kids. My pulse hammered. This wasn't just a savings account. The statements showed regular deposits from his salary, amounts he'd always claimed went toward our mortgage and retirement. I felt like I'd stepped into a parallel universe, where my husband was a stranger. The bathroom door squeaked. I closed the laptop and wiped my hands again, but the flour had turned clammy with sweat. Daniel emerged, towel slung low, eyes crinkling in his usual easy smile. "You okay, Em? You look pale." I forced a smile.
Fine.
Just thinking about dinner. But inside, questions screamed. Why hide money? Was there another woman? Gambling? A secret child? The possibilities made my stomach knot. That night, lying next to him while he snored softly, I stared at the ceiling. My mind replayed every moment we'd discussed finances. All those times he'd brushed off my questions with a kiss and a promise of, "I'll handle it." I'd let him handle it.
And he'd handled me.
In the morning, I played normal. Packed the kids' lunches, kissed Daniel goodbye, then retreated to the quiet kitchen to plan my next move. I needed facts, not speculation. So I called our bank pretending to be Daniel's assistant, a trick I'd picked up from an old colleague. Within minutes, I had confirmation. The account was real, solely in his name, and deposits matched the missing slices of his paycheck. The betrayal burned like acid. But beneath the hurt, something else flickered, a strange, icy resolve. I wasn't going to scream or confront him yet. That would give him time to spin a story, to erase evidence. No, I would be patient. I would gather everything. That evening, Daniel brought home Thai food and kissed my cheek as though nothing had changed. We sat around the table with our 2 kids, Sarah, 9, and Lucas, 7, chatting about school projects and soccer practice. I watched him laugh, watched his hands move, the familiar creases at the corners of his eyes. How could the same man who read bedtime stories about brave knights be hiding thousands from his family? After the kids went to bed, he poured us wine. "Rough day?" he asked. I nearly blurted out, "Rough enough to find out you're lying to me." Instead, I sipped my wine and said, "Just tired." He smiled. "We'll take a vacation soon. You deserve it." A vacation? Paid for by which account? I wondered bitterly. When he went upstairs to watch a game, I opened my journal. The pen hovered over the page, then began to move on its own. Step 1. Find out why. Underneath, I listed possible motives: affair, gambling, business venture. My hand trembled as I wrote the next line. Step 2. Decide what kind of woman I'm going to be. I closed the journal. A plan was forming, something bigger than confrontation. If Daniel wanted to play games with our future, I would show him how well I could play too. The next few days, I lived a double life. By day, I was the same wife and mother, volunteering at school, making dinner, laughing at Daniel's jokes. By night, after he slept, I combed through his emails, credit reports, and even his glove compartment. I found clues, receipts from a co-working space downtown, a P.O. box key, and a vague email from someone named Liam about the project. Each discovery deepened the pit in my stomach. This wasn't a fling or a gambling habit. Daniel was funneling money into something else entirely, something secret enough to hide under layers of aliases. But as I pieced together the puzzle, a mirror turned back on me. What did it say about me that I was sneaking through his things, lying to his face? Did betrayal justify more betrayal? One night, as I tucked Sarah in, she looked up at me with those big, trusting eyes. "Mommy, why are you sad lately?" I brushed her hair back. "Just grown-up stuff, sweetie. Nothing for you to worry about." But as I kissed her forehead, I made myself a silent promise. Whatever happened between Daniel and me, I would protect our children. That meant being smart, not reactive. By the end of the week, I had enough evidence to confront him. Yet something held me back, not fear, exactly, but a sense that a simple confrontation wouldn't deliver justice. If he'd been siphoning off money for years, leaving me to scale back my career, then an apology wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel what I felt. The shock, the powerlessness, the realization that someone you trusted had been 2 steps ahead all along. That night, as Daniel snored beside me, I stared at the ceiling again. Only this time, I wasn't replaying the past. I was rehearsing the future. The payback I was planning wouldn't just expose his secret. It would make him question everything and force him to confront the cost of his deception. And as the plan crystallized, I almost smiled. For the first time in days, I felt in control. I woke up before dawn the next morning, the house still cloaked in quiet. Daniel's arm draped across me like a weight. I slid out of bed carefully, heart racing with the thrill of secrecy, and padded to the kitchen. The coffee maker hissed as I opened my laptop. On the screen glowed the evidence I compiled, screenshots of the hidden account, copies of receipts, and notes about the co-working space and P.O. box. It looked like a detective's board without the red string. I stared at it, feeling a strange surge of power. For the first time since that email, I wasn't just a victim of his secret. I was an active player. The question was how to use that power. A simple confrontation would get me explanations, maybe even an apology, but not restitution. And not the lesson. I wanted him to experience the same cold helplessness I'd felt. So I thought like him, strategically. Daniel was methodical, careful. If he'd built this secret for years, then tearing it down required patience. I started with the co-working space. During lunch, I drove downtown and slipped into the building pretending to be a prospective member. The receptionist smiled brightly. "Are you here to tour?" "Yes," I said, flashing a practice smile. "I'm Emily. I'm thinking of renting a small office for a freelance project." She handed me a brochure. "We've got several spaces available. What kind of work do you do?" "Marketing," I replied automatically. "I'm trying to branch out." She showed me around, a clean, modern setup with glass offices, open lounges, and a bulletin board full of networking events. As we passed one locked office, I noticed a small brass nameplate. D. Carter Consulting. My stomach tightened. Carter was Daniel's mother's maiden name. After the tour, I loitered near the bulletin board, pretending to read flyers until the receptionist got busy with a phone call. Then I slipped a glance through the frosted glass of the office. Inside were binders, a laptop, and a whiteboard scribbled with charts. So he had a consulting business. But consulting what? And why hide it? I left with a bright smile and a brochure, my heart pounding. Back home, I searched D. Carter Consulting online. Almost nothing came up, just a sparse website advertising strategic solutions for small businesses. No address. No staff. No contact besides a generic email. The mystery deepened, but it also gave me an idea. If he'd built a secret identity to funnel money into, I could build one too. That night, after tucking the kids in, I sat at my desk and opened a new email account under a pseudonym. Julia Spencer. Julia was a mix of my grandmother's name and my favorite book heroine, a woman who outwitted everyone. Under Julia's identity, I crafted a friendly but vague inquiry to D. Carter Consulting. "I'm interested in your services. Could we meet to discuss?" Daniel was in the living room watching TV when I hit send. My heart thumped so hard I worried he'd hear it. The next morning, I checked the account before breakfast. A reply had come at 1:14 a.m. "Thank you for your interest. I'd be happy to meet. What's your availability?" I nearly laughed. He was so deep in his double life, he was answering clients in the middle of the night from the same house where his wife slept unaware. I typed back, suggesting a meeting at a downtown cafe. Over the next few days, Daniel grew more distracted. He spent longer hours at work and grew cagey about his phone. If I hadn't been so angry, I might have felt sorry for him. He was digging his own hole deeper without realizing I was the one handing him the shovel. On the morning of the meeting, I dressed like Julia, sleek blazer, dark sunglasses, hair pinned differently. My heart raced with the thrill and guilt of deception. I was about to catfish my own husband. I arrived early at the cafe, a bustling place near the co-working space. When Daniel walked in, my breath caught. He wore a navy suit I hadn't seen before, carrying a leather briefcase. He scanned the room, then froze when he saw me, or rather, saw Julia. For a second, his eyes flicked with recognition, but then he shook it off. Why would his wife be here dressed like a stranger? Julia, he asked uncertainly. Yes, I said, voice pitched lower. Thank you for meeting me. We sat. He launched into a polished pitch about strategic growth planning and financial optimization. I nodded, asking questions that probed for details, how long he'd been in business, what kind of clients he took, how he handled confidentiality. He answered smoothly, too smoothly, but revealed enough to confirm my suspicions. He wasn't just hiding money. He'd built a whole side business, one that he'd grown using resources we could have used as a family. It was profitable enough to stash nearly $75,000, yet he'd let me cut my hours and worry about bills. As he talked, a flicker of pride surfaced. He was good at this. But it was buried under my rage. Every polished word felt like a knife. I ended the meeting with a handshake. I'll be in touch, I said. Walking out into the sunlight, my knees trembled. I'd just played my husband at his own game. And it worked. That night, Daniel came home later than usual, humming again. He poured himself a drink and kissed my cheek. Long day, he muttered. I smiled sweetly. Me too. I'd learned enough to set the next stage in motion. If he wanted secrecy, I'd give him secrecy. If he wanted to hide money, I'd show him what it felt like when control slipped through your fingers. Over the next week, I quietly opened my own bank account under Julia's name. Into it, I began transferring small amounts from our joint account. Nothing large enough for him to notice immediately, but enough to create a cushion. It wasn't theft, I told myself. It was insurance. Yet at night, lying awake, I felt the weight of what I was doing. Was I becoming the very thing I despised? A liar? A deceiver? But then I'd remember the years I'd trusted him, the opportunities I'd lost while he built a secret empire. My resolve hardened. This wasn't petty revenge. This was reclaiming my power and teaching him a lesson he wouldn't forget. By the end of the month, Julia's account held enough to fund the rest of my plan. One night, after dinner, Daniel mentioned taking the kids on a weekend trip. We need family time, he said, smiling. I agreed. That's a great idea. Inside, I was already picturing the weekend after that. The weekend when his perfect facade would start to crack. 2 weeks later, the perfect opportunity arrived. Daniel announced he'd be traveling to Chicago for meetings with a client. He'd never been to Chicago on business before, and something in the way he avoided my eyes when he told me made my stomach tighten. 3 days? I asked lightly, stacking plates in the dishwasher. Yeah, he said. Back Sunday night. You'll be okay with the kids? Of course. I smiled. We'll manage. Inside, my mind was already racing. 3 days without him meant 3 days of freedom to act. The first thing I did was go back to the co-working space, not as Julia this time, but as Emily the wife. I signed up for a day pass and spent hours combing through the shared mail area and the bulletin boards. In his mailbox, tucked among business flyers, I found an envelope addressed to D. Carter Consulting with no return address. Inside was a cashier's check for $6,500. So he was taking payments under his fake name, too. I took photos of everything, careful not to disturb the contents. The receptionist eyed me curiously, but I smiled and left before she could ask questions. Back home, after putting the kids to bed, I opened my laptop and began building a dossier. Screenshots of bank transfers, copies of emails, photos of checks. It felt surreal, like preparing a case for court. But I wasn't planning to go to court. I was planning to show Daniel exactly how it felt to lose control of your own life. Still, doubt crept in at the edges. Was I going too far? Was I risking the kids' stability for the sake of revenge? I thought of Sarah asking why I seemed sad, of Lucas's honest drawings of our family. I had to be careful. This plan had to be precise, clean, and above all, legal. So I added one more step, a consultation with a lawyer. I booked an appointment under my maiden name, telling Daniel it was a PDA meeting. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Michelle, listened quietly as I laid out the situation. "You're technically still married," she said finally. "Any assets acquired during the marriage are marital property. Even if he's hiding money, you're entitled to a share." "That's what I thought," I said. "I'm not looking to divorce him yet. I just want him to understand what he's done." Michelle's eyebrows arched. "So, you want leverage?" "Yes." She leaned back. "Then gather your evidence, but don't touch his account. Transferring money from a joint account is fine, but anything from his sole account could complicate things." I thanked her, feeling steadier. My plan wasn't just revenge. It was leverage, positioned perfectly for the moment of confrontation. Over the next week, I set up the final phase. Using Julia's account, I arranged a business investment with Daniel's company, a fake project that would require him to commit time and funds. He eagerly agreed, thinking it was a new client. I wired a small deposit to make it look real, then scheduled a meeting for the day after he returned from Chicago. Meanwhile, I prepped our home. I reorganized files, backed up our family photos, and printed copies of every document. A digital and paper trail. If Daniel tried to erase the secret, I'd still have proof. One night, as I slipped papers into a folder, I heard small footsteps. Sarah stood in the doorway in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed box. "Mommy, why are you working so late?" I forced a smile. "Just some grown-up stuff, honey. Go back to bed." She nodded, but didn't move. "Are you and Daddy okay?" The question pierced me. I crouched down and hugged her. "We're going to be fine," I whispered. "I promise." But as she padded back to her room, tears pricked my eyes. Fine was such a fragile word. By the time Daniel's flight landed Sunday night, my plan was in place. He came through the door looking tired but pleased with himself, hugging the kids and dropping his bag by the stairs. "How was Chicago?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Busy," he said, "but good. Lots of opportunities coming up." I smiled and kissed his cheek. "That's great. You'll need your energy this week. I've lined up something exciting for you." He blinked. "Oh, what's that?" "You'll see," I said, turning back to the stove. Inside, my heart hammered. Tomorrow would be the first move in the endgame. The next day, he left early, saying he had to catch up at the office. I waited until the kids were at school, then drove to the bank. There, I opened a safety deposit box under Julia's name and placed my entire dossier inside. If anything happened to me or my laptop, the evidence would still exist. Then I went home, brewed a pot of tea, and rehearsed what I'd say at the meeting. When Daniel walked into the downtown cafe the next afternoon, he looked energized, expecting a lucrative deal. He didn't recognize me at first. I was Julia again, in my blazer and glasses, hair in a sleek bun. We sat. He launched into his pitch. I listened, nodded, and then asked a single question. "Daniel, do you ever tell your wife about your clients?" He froze, smile flickering. "Why would you ask that?" I leaned in. "Because your wife knows everything." His face went white. For a heartbeat, silence hung between us, thick as fog. The cafe noise dimmed around us. What?" he stammered. I slipped off my glasses. "Hello, Daniel." He stared at me, realization crashing over his features. "Emily? What the hell?" "Lower your voice," I said calmly. "We're in public." He looked around, then leaned forward, eyes dark. "What are you doing?" I slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were copies of the bank statements, the checks, the co-working space photos. "I know about the account. The business. All of it. He didn't open the envelope. He just stared at it as though it might explode. Emily, I can explain. I tilted my head. Go ahead. He opened his mouth, closed it, then rubbed his temples. It's not what you think. I almost laughed. It never is. He glanced around again, then hissed. We can't talk here. Then meet me at home tonight, I said, standing. 8 o'clock. No excuses. I walked out, my legs trembling. People stared, but I didn't care. The first shot had been fired. That evening, I put the kids to bed early and waited in the living room. Daniel came in at 8 sharp, face pale. He sat opposite me, hands clasped. Emily, please. I held up a hand. I've been patient for years. Now you're going to tell me the truth. Daniel sat across from me on the couch, his elbows on his knees, hands clasped like a schoolboy called to the principal's office. His eyes darted everywhere except at mine. For a moment, I almost pitied him, almost. Start from the beginning, I said evenly. No lies. He let out a long breath. It started as a side hustle. After the recession, my company cut my bonus. We were barely scraping by, and you just had Lucas. I wanted a safety net. I folded my arms. So, you opened a secret bank account and lied to me for 4 years? His jaw flexed. At first it wasn't much. A few consulting gigs on the side. But then it grew. I didn't want to tell you until it was something real. That's not an explanation, Daniel. That's an excuse. My voice trembled despite myself. You let me cut my hours at work. You let me worry about bills while you hoarded money in secret. His eyes flashed. It wasn't hoarding. It was building something for us. For the kids. By shutting me out? I demanded. By making me feel like a fool in my own marriage? He dropped his gaze. I didn't think you'd understand. I stared at him, stunned. Understand? I have a degree in marketing. I built my own career before I stepped back for the family. I would have been your partner, Daniel. But you didn't want a partner. You wanted control. He ran a hand through his hair. That's not true. Then why the secrecy? The P.O. box? The fake name? I pressed. Why not come to me? He looked up at me then, and for a moment I saw the boyish pride beneath his fear. Because it felt good, he admitted, to have something that was mine. To be powerful. The words hung in the air, heavy as stones. I stood pacing the room. Do you realize what you've done to us? To me, Emily. No, I snapped. You don't get to Emily me right now. You don't get to play the wounded provider. I turned to face him. You've been living a double life, and you've dragged our family into it. His shoulders sagged. What do you want from me? I want you to see what it feels like, I said quietly. To have the rug pulled out from under you. To be blindsided. He frowned. What do you mean? I walked to the mantel and picked up a folder. I've been preparing, Daniel. For weeks. His face went pale again. Preparing what? Leverage. I handed him the folder. Inside were copies of everything. The bank statements, the photos, the email exchanges with Julia. This is what I know. This is what I could take to a lawyer tomorrow. He flipped through the pages, his breathing shallow. You went through my emails? I did. My voice was flat. You forfeited the right to privacy when you built an entire secret life behind my back. He closed the folder with a snap, staring at me. So what now? Divorce? That depends on you, I said. On what you're willing to do. His eyes narrowed. Are you blackmailing me? No, I met his gaze. I'm giving you a chance to come clean and make things right, before someone else forces you to. Silence stretched between us. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall. For the first time since we'd married, Daniel looked small to me, deflated. What do you want? He asked again, voice hoarse. I want you to transfer half of that secret account into a new joint account. Today, I said. And I want full transparency on your business. No more aliases. No more P.O. boxes. He stared at me. And if I don't, then I walk, I said simply. And I take everything I've documented to my lawyer, including evidence of you funneling money out of our household income. His jaw worked. You do that. I met his eyes. You've left me no choice. He slumped back on the couch, rubbing his face. God, Emily. I waited. After a long pause, he said, Fine. You'll have your share. And I'll shut down the P.O. box. That's not enough, I said. I want a role in the business. I want to see the books. He let out a bitter laugh. You want to run it with me? No, I said. I want to know exactly what you're doing, where the money's going, and what risks you're taking with our future. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. But his eyes held a flicker of something, resentment, maybe, or calculation. I'd seen that look before. Daniel wasn't done playing games. I sat back down. Good. Because if you try to hide anything else, Daniel, I will walk. And next time, there won't be a warning. He swallowed hard. Understood. We sat in silence, the air heavy with years of unsaid things. For a moment, I almost believed we could rebuild from here. But deep down, a part of me knew this wasn't over. Daniel had tasted secrecy and power, and men like that didn't give it up easily. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling once again, a new question gnawed at me. I'd forced his confession, secured my leverage. But had I really taught him a lesson? Or had I simply shown him how to play smarter? And if he played smarter, would I be ready? For a few weeks, things seemed calmer. Daniel transferred half of the hidden account into a new joint one, just as I demanded. He even brought me spreadsheets of his consulting business and invited me to sit in on a client call. On the surface, it looked like transparency. But I could feel it, the shift in his energy. He was too agreeable, too compliant, like a chess player sacrificing pawns to protect a queen. One evening, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number flashed on the screen. All set. We'll send through Liam. I felt that old nausea again. He was already moving pieces I couldn't see. I didn't reply to the text, but my instincts sharpened. If Daniel thought he could outmaneuver me, he had another thing coming. The next day, while the kids were at school, I went to the co-working space again. His office looked the same, but the whiteboard was wiped clean, the binders gone. Only a laptop sat on the desk. He was moving his operations somewhere else. Back home, I called Michelle, my lawyer. He's cooperating, but I think he's still hiding something, I said. Her voice was crisp. Then you keep documenting. If he tries to shift assets again, we'll freeze them. Freeze them? I repeated. Courts can issue injunctions, she explained. But you need to catch him in the act. That night, as Daniel scrolled through his phone on the couch, I asked casually, Everything squared away with your business? Yeah, he said, eyes on the screen. Why? Just checking, I said, smiling. He smiled back, but his thumb kept flicking across the phone. A locked expression. I knew that look. I decided to accelerate my plan. Using Julia's account, I emailed Daniel SD Carter a new proposal, a much larger project, one that required a significant upfront payment and confidential paperwork. It was a test. If he moved money without telling me, I'd know he was still hiding funds. He replied within hours, eager as ever. Happy to discuss. When can we meet? We set the meeting for Friday. In the meantime, I prepared my own trap. With Michelle's guidance, I drafted a legal agreement under Julia's name that looked like a standard non-disclosure contract, but included a clause about full financial disclosure for the project. If he signed it, it would give me a paper trail linking his business to undisclosed funds. Thursday night, Daniel mentioned a late dinner with a client. He kissed my cheek and left wearing that same navy suit. I watched him drive away, a hollow feeling in my stomach. I opened my laptop. The GPS tracker I'd slipped into his briefcase weeks ago, a cheap device meant for tracking lost luggage, pinged his location. Not a restaurant, not an office, an upscale condo building downtown. My hands trembled. Was it a mistress? Another office? Something worse? I stared at the screen for a long minute, then grabbed my coat. The building's lobby smelled of lemon polish and money. A concierge nodded as I walked past. I took the elevator to the floor indicated on the GPS app. The hallway was quiet, lined with abstract art. Unit 9B, that's where the dot glowed. I raised my hand to knock, then stopped. Did I really want to see what was behind this door? Voices drifted out, Daniel's and another man's, low and urgent. I pressed my ear to the door. Transfer's ready, the other man said. Keep it off the books, Daniel replied. She's watching everything now. My heart hammered. He wasn't just planning a new project. He was actively hiding assets from me, even after everything. I pulled back, shaking. This was it. Proof of ongoing deception. I didn't knock. I didn't want a confrontation in some stranger's condo. Instead, I pulled out my phone and recorded 30 seconds of the conversation through the door, enough to capture Daniel's voice and words. Then I walked away. Back in my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel. My plan had changed. This wasn't about leverage anymore. This was about consequences. At home, I emailed Michelle the recording and a summary of everything. She replied within minutes. We have enough to file. Call me tomorrow. I put my phone down and went to check on the kids. Sarah was asleep with her fox tucked under her chin. Lucas was sprawled across his bed, mouth open. Their small, steady breaths grounded me. I wasn't just doing this for revenge anymore. I was doing it to protect us. Friday morning, Daniel was all charm at breakfast. Got a big day ahead, he said. Might be home late. Good luck, I said brightly. Inside, I felt like a coiled spring. Today was the day. At noon, dressed as Julia again, I met him at the cafe. He looked sharp, confident, unaware he was walking into a trap. We exchanged pleasantries. I slid the legal agreement across the table. Standard NDA, I said. Needs your signature before we proceed. He barely glanced at it before signing. I fought to keep my hands steady as I slipped the document back into my folder. That was the link Michelle needed. After the meeting, I went straight to her office. We filed for a temporary restraining order on all of Daniel's business accounts, pending financial disclosure. She promised the papers would be served within 48 hours. That evening, Daniel came home whistling.
Good day, he said.
Might have landed a huge client. I'm proud of you, I said, smiling sweetly. Let's have dinner to celebrate. We ate spaghetti at the table with the kids, laughter and sauce everywhere. To anyone else, we looked like a normal family. But under the surface, the fault line widened. Later, after the kids were asleep, I went to the window and stared out at the dark street. In less than 2 days, Daniel's world would tilt. He'd learn what it felt like to be blindsided. A part of me felt exhilarated. Another part felt sick. I'd built my revenge carefully, step by step, but now that it was about to unfold, I couldn't shake the question. When the dust settled, what would be left of us? Saturday morning was strangely quiet. Daniel took the kids to soccer practice while I sat at the kitchen table nursing a mug of coffee. Michelle's email was open on my laptop. Papers served Monday morning. I'd done it. In less than 48 hours, Daniel's secret empire would be frozen. But instead of triumph, a heavy unease settled over me. Was this justice or destruction? When Daniel came back with the kids, he was upbeat. We should take them for ice cream later, he said, kissing my temple. He looked so normal, so familiar, it almost broke me. I forced a smile. Sounds good. All day, I played the part, laughing at Lucas's soccer stories, helping Sarah with her science project, sitting next to Daniel on the couch while he watched a game. But inside, I was counting down the hours. Sunday night, after the kids were asleep, he turned to me in bed. I know things have been rough, he said softly. I want to fix this, Em. I really do. His sudden earnestness threw me. Do you? Yes. He reached for my hand. I shouldn't have kept things from you. But I'm trying now. You see that, right? I stared at him in the dim light. You're trying? I echoed, my voice neutral. He smiled faintly, eyes tired. Let's start over. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But the recording on my phone, the signed NDA, the papers ready to be served, they all whispered otherwise. I hope we can, I said quietly, turning onto my side. Good night, Daniel. Monday morning dawned gray. Daniel left early, kissing me goodbye with his usual charm. Big meetings today, he said. Wish me luck. Good luck, I said, forcing a smile. An hour later, Michelle called. It's done, she said. The bank's been notified. He'll find out as soon as he tries to access the accounts. I thanked her, then sat at the kitchen table, heart pounding. The endgame had begun. At 10:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. What's going on? My accounts are frozen. I stared at the screen. Then another text. Emily, did you do this? I didn't reply. At 10:25, the phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. At 10:40, another text. We need to talk now. Finally, I answered his call. His voice was a mix of anger and panic. Emily, what the hell have you done? I protected our family, I said calmly. You had my business frozen. Do you have any idea? Yes. I cut him off. I have every idea. I warned you, Daniel. You didn't listen. Silence crackled on the line. Then, softer. You've destroyed me. No, I said. I've stopped you from destroying us. He inhaled sharply. We need to meet. Tonight. Without the kids. Fine, I said. 8 o'clock. At home. I hung up, my hands trembling. This was it, the confrontation that would decide everything. That evening, the house felt like a stage. I'd sent the kids to my sister's for a sleepover, telling them Daddy had work. The living room was lit by a single lamp. Papers sat neatly on the coffee table, the evidence, the legal filings, everything. Daniel arrived at 8 on the dot. He looked wrecked, tie loosened, hair disheveled, eyes wild. He slammed the door behind him. How could you do this? He demanded. I stayed seated, my voice steady. Sit down. He didn't. You've sabotaged my business. I've exposed your lies, I corrected. There's a difference. He paced like a caged animal. Do you know what you've done? Clients will walk. I could be sued. You should have thought about that before hiding assets and signing contracts under fake names, I said. He stopped, glaring at me. You think you're so righteous? You've been lying too. Julia Spencer? That was you. Yes, I said simply. I became your client to get proof. And it worked. His mouth twisted. Congratulations. You've destroyed everything we built. I stood then, finally matching his height. No, Daniel. You destroyed it when you chose deception over partnership. This is just the consequence. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Shame, maybe, or recognition. But it was quickly replaced by bitterness. So what now? Divorce? You take half and run. I took a breath. That depends on you. He barked a humorless laugh. Oh, so you're giving me options now? Yes. I met his gaze. Option 1. Full transparency. We rebuild together, no secrets. Option 2. We divorce, and the court sorts out the assets. Either way, your secret empire ends tonight. He stared at me, chest heaving. And you think after all this, I'd still want you as a partner? I don't know what you want, I said softly. But I know what I deserve. Honesty. Respect. A marriage built on trust, not games. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. God, he muttered. What have I done? I sat opposite him, exhausted. That's a question only you can answer. We sat in silence, the house echoing with everything unspoken. Outside, a storm began, rain tapping against the windows. After a while, he lifted his head. His eyes were red. I don't know if I can fix this. Then maybe it's time to stop trying to control everything, I said quietly. Maybe it's time to tell the truth. He stared at me, then nodded slowly. Okay, the truth. And he began to talk, really talk, about the pressure to provide, about the thrill of independence, about how each lie had built on the last until he didn't know how to stop. As he spoke, the anger in his voice cracked, replaced by something raw and human. I listened, arms crossed, heart torn. I'd wanted this confession for so long. Now that it was here, It didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. When he finished, the room was silent except for the rain. He looked at me, eyes searching. What now, Emily? I didn't answer right away, because I honestly didn't know. I sat across from Daniel, the rain outside like a slow drumbeat, his confession still hanging in the air. For the first time in years, he looked small, not the charming, powerful man I'd married, but a tired, cornered human being. I took a deep breath. I need you to hear something, I said quietly. His eyes flicked up, wary.
What?
I never wanted to destroy you, I said. I wanted to wake you up. To make you see what your lies were doing, to me, to the kids, to yourself. But after tonight, I'm done fighting. The next move is yours. He blinked. What do you mean? I mean the bank accounts can be released if you agree to a full disclosure. If you don't, my lawyer proceeds with divorce filings in the morning. No more games. He rubbed his face with his palms.
God.
You sound like a prosecutor. I sound like a wife who's had enough, I said. Silence stretched. Then slowly he nodded. All right. You'll have everything. Full access. Full disclosure. His voice cracked. I'll shut down the offshore accounts. I'll move everything back. No more secrets. I studied him. Why should I believe you now? Because you've left me no choice, he said bitterly, then softer. And because I don't want to lose you. I wanted to believe him, but my heart was cautious. We'll see, I said. Actions, not words. He swallowed hard, then stood, reaching for his coat. Where are you going? I asked. To the office, he said. To start cleaning this up. I'll send you the paperwork tonight. He left without another word. I sat alone, staring at the rain, a swirl of relief, sadness, and uncertainty in my chest. 2 weeks later, Daniel had followed through. The hidden accounts were closed, the money transferred to a joint account under legal oversight. He'd even started therapy voluntarily. On the surface, things were calmer. We had family dinners, went to soccer games, even laughed sometimes. But the cracks were still there. Trust doesn't come back overnight. Then one night, Michelle called me. You'll want to see this, she said, emailing me a screenshot. It was a transaction notification, $50,000 wired from Daniel's business account to an entity named SE Holdings, a company I'd never heard of. My stomach dropped. Had he started again? Was this all an act? I confronted him the next morning. What is SE Holdings? I asked, holding up the printout. He blinked. What? This. I shoved the paper toward him. You promised no more secrets. He stared at it, then slowly smiled, a sad, tired smile. That's for you. What? It's an LLC I set up in your name, he said quietly. Sarah and Emily Holdings. For you and our daughter. A trust fund. I wanted to surprise you after I proved I was serious about changing. I froze. You what? I signed it all over to you, he said. It's not hidden. Michelle can verify. It's yours. I just stood there, stunned. Why? Because I finally get it, he said. Money means nothing if I lose my family. I'm trying to show you I'm done hiding. For the first time in months, I saw no arrogance in his eyes. Just sincerity and a kind of surrender. I sat down, my legs weak. Daniel, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness yet, he said softly. But I'm done lying. That's all I can give you. Tears welled in my eyes. I don't know if we can ever go back to what we were, I whispered. Maybe not, he said. But maybe we can build something new. With honesty this time. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I nodded. We'll see. Epilogue, the lesson. Months later, I told my story at a women's support group. One woman asked, Do you regret it? The payback. I thought about it. About the late nights, the lawyer meetings, the sting of betrayal. About Daniel's face when the accounts were frozen. About the trust fund he'd created without telling me. No, I said finally. I don't regret standing up for myself. But I've learned something. Revenge doesn't heal you. Boundaries do. Transparency does. And sometimes, Giving someone one last chance with your eyes wide open does. The room was quiet. Then another woman asked, "Did he change?" I smiled faintly. "He's still changing. And so am I." That was the real twist. Not that my husband had a secret account, or that I exposed him, but that in the aftermath, we both had to rebuild or walk away, with the truth laid bare. And that's the story I tell now. Not about revenge, but about consequences and the fragile, painful hope that honesty can still grow where betrayal once lived.